Welcome! I'm Johan Nilsson.
And I'm Lincoln Murphy, and this is Impact Weekly.
We're here to help you make your customers successful. Each week, we answer your most pressing customer success management questions by relying on our years of experience with companies around the world.
Let's get this going. Hey everyone! So, welcome back to another Impact Weekly podcast episode. Today, we're going to talk about customer ownership. I think it's a huge topic. Before we get into that, I just want to say also that we are receiving so many great questions from you. We're kind of overwhelmed with all the stuff we get. And we're actually having to work now to put these all these questions that we get into specific podcast episodes and trying to find time to cover everything. So keep that up. We love that. And we're going to cover a lot of stuff in the coming weeks. So I think that's just great. Do you agree, Lincoln?
Oh, it's fantastic. And yeah, it's been great to get some really good questions. So I'm excited. Yeah,
and I think some of them are coming from a lot of the same area and the similar situations, and then we have some that are brand new or coming from a completely new. A lot of things are happening as well where we are right now. So I think it's a great mix of both things we've been talking about for a long period of time and things that are really brand new. So I think that's really exciting.
For sure.
But to get into today, to this, the topic of today. So we have actually two parts to this question. The first part here is that we have a person asking if it seems that customer success is moving away from one person owning the customer journey to being more people owning the customer journey. Is this the future, or is it something that will change again? That's the first part of the question. The second part here is from another person that's basically having this situation where a lot of people are involved in the customer journey. And this person is asking about how do you create a good value-driven customer journey when you have a lot of people involved. And this person is actually experiencing a little bit of poor communications going around with the customer. So first part is this a trend? Is this something we see happening? And the second part is how do you manage in this area, in this situation as well?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say that in customer success, the trend is definitely what we would say is specialization across the customer lifecycle. So this means that we're seeing more people working with the customer directly than we saw in the past. The days of a CSM doing all things across the lifecycle are over, and frankly, that's a really good thing. It means there's a realization that a CSM is not magic. CSM does not stand for customer success magician. That there's just that idea of a CSM being, all things to the customer was just unrealistic, and it put way too much pressure on one person to do way too much. So I think this is not a test. This is not something that people are just trying. This is definitely a trend, and I think we're going to see more and more specialization across the life cycle. But that said, there's a lot going on in this question, or in these two questions, more so than just sort of the structure. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, definitely. No, I fully agree as well that this is a clear trend, and I think this is going to continue to develop. But also, also taking a step back, we also need to understand this, of course, depends on where you are as a company. If you're a very young company starting off, you might not have a team looking after the customer either. So you might still be just a one-person team in the beginning, of course. So, but definitely when you see your customer base growing a lot, you will see specialization coming up as a way to become more efficient. And I think this is where we want to spend some time today as well, talk about how you do this in a good way.
For sure. for sure.
And ownership, I think, is central here. But maybe we should stop there a little bit as well. What is ownership, customer ownership? I know. I mean, I think most people will assume ownership with the person being responsible for the ARR, the MRR, the commercial side of things with the customer. What do you say there? Is that
it's interesting. I mean, this is one of those things where, you know, I think there's a lot of different points of view on this, and I would just say I kind of look at it like the company owns the customer, and there are just people along the way that are ultimately responsible for the customer's success. And I know that's not. I know when people say ownership, I know what they're getting at, you know, and it generally comes down to, you know, who's responsible or who's accountable for the customer's ultimate success. But I think this idea of ownership kind of muddies the water a little bit, because it makes it seem like there should be one person that has like ultimate responsibility for everything. And while it's true that the CSM may be the primary point of contact with the customer and may be ultimately accountable, the fact is there are others that at various points in the customer lifecycle, quote unquote, own that piece of the lifecycle and are just as responsible, would be just as accountable for the customer's desired outcome as the CSM. So, you know, ownership it's an interesting way of looking at things, and I think maybe just in and of itself, we need to kind of look at things differently. And like I said, look at the customer across their entire life cycle and see who's responsible and who's accountable. We'll talk more about like a framework for doing so in a minute. But yeah, this is one of those things that seems like it's so simple, right? It's so simple. And then when you start kind of peeling the onion, you realize, gosh, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. Also, I think you made some examples there, but maybe we should, for someone for someone whose this concept is brand new, that they are still working like every CSM has owns the whole journey or is responsible for the whole journey. What roles do we see and specialization? Just to give maybe people who are not familiar to that, what kind of new roles are evolving in customer success?
Sure. So I think probably the most common specialized role that we're seeing, again, and I usually don't say, across the customer journey. I look at it at the different stages of the customer life cycle, where you see a bifurcation of responsibility is between onboarding and sort of everything else. So we're seeing, it's fairly common now to have an onboarding specialist or a team of onboarding specialists that work with the customer immediately post-sale. And then once the customer comes out of onboarding, they then start working with the CSM. Now, maybe the CSM originally meets with them and then turns them over to the onboarding specialist. That's not the point, but you'll see those two roles are fairly common. But you will see things like technical account managers, people that come in and work with the customer on more technical things, or maybe professional services that are doing really much more extensive work with the customer on certain projects. You'll see just other subject matter experts being brought in. Let's say you work in a very specialized industry where, as a CSM, you maybe don't have a lot of industry experience. You understand how to work with the customer, you understand how to make them successful, but there are points where bringing somebody in that has domain-specific experience would make sense. And so those would be, what we would call SMEs, subject matter experts. So it just, those are kind of the more common ones, but definitely onboarding is an area that we're seeing specialization happening across a large swath of companies.
Yeah. For sure, but I really like what you said there about these specialists coming in, because I think that's also like an opportunity. I think that's like a overseen opportunity as well in some cases where people, you have a CSM doing a lot of work, but if you could add this type of person that would actually speed up things with, it can be with an expansion, or it can be getting a customer going faster and so on. So I think it's looking at different roles can also be a way to free up time and also find new opportunities to grow with your customers. So I think it's a good way to look at it as well, to see, can we add roles that will speed up things and will help the customer get more value, get more out of our product faster by adding specialists as well. So
for sure. Well, and you bring one I didn't mention is sort of a dedicated, or not dedicated, a dedicated role, not necessarily dedicated to a particular customer, but for account management or something to do with account level functions. So renewal, expansion, that kind of stuff. So we see companies having a dedicated, essentially a dedicated upsell team that's separate from it's separate from new business sales. It may still fit under the sales organization, but these are people that work only with existing customers, and in theory at least, and hopefully, work very closely with the CSM and other people on the customer success side to deliver, the right next product or the right add-ons or whatever to a customer. So you see that. You see a renewal team where renewal is more complex, for at least a subset of customers. The CSM probably shouldn't be doing that, not because of any sort of like commercial activities hurt trust between the CSM and the customer. It's a complex process, and so we need to make sure that it's going to get done, and we need to make sure it's going to get done well. So you might have a dedicated team there. So there's also that account management side, and the distinction there is account level stuff, right? Not customer and their desired outcome, but literally things that have to do with the commercial aspect of the relationship. And those are segmented out simply because of the complexity, not because a CSM having commercial conversations with a customer is in any way bad. I want to make that distinction very clear. But so you're right. Definitely. There's a lot of different places, and I would also say that just in general, if you see a place in your customer lifecycle where there would make sense to have an SME or have a dedicated role for that, and you don't see anybody out there doing that, do it. It might be exactly what you and your customers need in your unique situation.
No, I think there is definitely, I've seen this many times, a lot of opportunities. This is where you can actually do a lot more with your existing customers is by looking at specialization and finding these. I've done one mistake I've done many times myself is that I'm trying to fit everything into one person, and it's like chasing Moby Dick, the white whale. So it's better to look at finding the people, looking at people's strengths and finding them, fitting them into where we can get most out to our customers in the organization, basically.
Exactly.
But so that's some of the opportunities and upside of doing this. But of course, I think the person asking the question mentioned something that is going to be critical when you add more people. And I think he or she said that poor communication. And I believe that's going to be, that's where you test the system when you have more people involved, right?
I like that. Yeah, you pressure test it, look for leaks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so poor communication, sort of dropping the ball, handoffs that don't work. That's kind of the hallmark of having multiple people involved, and especially in situations where that has failed, where we look at that and say, yeah, there were a lot of people involved and it just didn't work. Well, it didn't work not because there were a lot of people involved. And I want to be really clear about that. There's a misconception that customers don't like to work with multiple people. They really just want to work with one CSM and that's it. And I just don't, the evidence doesn't show that to be the case. And anecdotally, I've not seen that. What I've seen is that customers really hate three things: surprises, unknowns, and repeating themselves. And when you have poor communication and poor orchestration and the handoffs are causing the customers to have to repeat themselves multiple times across multiple different individual contributors. And all of a sudden they're working with somebody that they didn't know that they were going to be working with, or they didn't expect to be handed off to another person. Those are the things that they don't like. So as long as you have everything well orchestrated, you're not dropping the ball, people aren't falling through the cracks, and there aren't leaks in the system, and you have good communication, it's not going to be a big deal to work with different people across the life cycle. So it really comes down to just getting those things right. Now, I say just getting those things right. That's the hard part.
Exactly. So. No, I think you're 100% right there, and that's it is really a misconception that we can't introduce that many people. That's going to be confusing. It won't be if they know what they're doing and they have been communicating between each other. I think, and also another thing to the question here, I think poor communication was mentioned, but I also could read a little bit between the lines that the people involved in these different parts of the life cycle, they are not also working together well. I mean, they go in and do their part, and then they kind of take off again. So I think that's also, that's linked to poor communication. But the second part here is also that collaboration between these teams needs, of course, to be on a really good level as well.
For sure. And I guess when I think of the poor communication, perhaps the intent of that aspect of the question was poor communication with the customer, but I also look at it as just poor communication with all stakeholders, internally and with the customer. And so, you to your point, like, we need to make sure that when one person is working with the customer and the customer is now going to be working with this other person, that everything that was done with the first person is communicated to the second person, sort of behind the scenes, so that they know what all was done, they know what happened, they know the results, they know what was implemented, and they can pick that up and run with it with the customer. And the customer doesn't have to, sort of repeat themselves. They don't have to explain what happened. The next person that works with the customer just knows what's going on, picks up the baton from the other person, and just goes. So it's poor communication sort of encompasses all of those things, I think. And if we can just make sure that we're like, I like the pressure test and look for leaks in the system. Those leaks are what's going to cause your customer to have a poor experience. So we need to make sure we're shoring up everything.
Yeah, and you also need to have the team. The mindset of the team needs to be that I'm not just responsible for this onboarding or this technical setup. I need to understand more things around my specific area, and be curious of the other teams. How is it going? Because we know things happen with customers, and it's not a completely scientific where exactly it moves from A to B to C and so on. So I think it's also requires people to be curious, more flexible even if they have a specific role, they need to be interested in what's going on in the other parts of the life cycle as well. So to really get. Then, if you have that type of person, that mindset, then the communication will be easier, and everything will work smoother.
For sure, and I to a large extent that's where really good leadership comes in, sort of making sure that you're creating an environment and bringing in the right people who will have that attitude and create you create that environment, and then you bring in the right people to ensure that everybody is thinking about things that way, that we're all moving in the same direction. We're all here to ensure the customer is successful. But that said, I think when we're thinking about how to actually solve for this, one of the things that I like to one of the things that I like to use is this thing called an RACI model, or RACI model. Yeah. So RACI model, you can just Google that. There's lots of examples out there. It is a way to sort of visualize the different stakeholders and what role they play at any time in the customer journey. Now, RACI is not a customer success specific framework. It stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And it's useful in basically any situation where you have multiple stakeholders. Yeah. And it will allow you to kind of map out and say, okay, hey, in onboarding, who's responsible for actually onboarding the customer? Who's accountable for this? So, those are not necessarily the same thing. No. And then who needs to be consulted on that? So you might need to actually talk to the salesperson to figure out what was their initial use case? What did you talk to them? Who needs to be informed? Perhaps it's, the CSM will need to be informed from the onboarding person. But maybe you learn something in that process and you'll need to inform, a subject matter expert or a TAM about something as well. So you kind of go through that process, and it will help you visualize this. So again, it's RACI model, not customer success specific, but a really great thing that you can use to visualize this and see just who needs to be in which role. People need to be just simply informed and kept up to speed on things, or are actually the ones doing the work.
Yeah, no, I think that's a super tool to use, and it's not that it's very complicated, this communication. It's more that you kind of forget and you kind of miss people, and you haven't thought through all the parts here. I think so mapping it out is going to be a very good step just to make sure that you cover everything. So that's a great tool. What else? So let's try to wrap up now and help these people who are looking to improve, maybe moving into a customer ownership by a bigger team. And if you have started already, and if you don't feel that things are moving very well, if you even get from the customer that they are not happy with this, maybe we should just help these people with three concrete things that we would recommend to take action on. Sure.
So I think the first one would be get clear on the processes and the roles. So this is, again, where the RACI model comes in. Yeah. And I would say start doing that now, even if it's just you. It might sound crazy. You're the only one that's going to be on there. But mapping out, okay, here are the various stages of the customer lifecycle. Here are the different stakeholders, and here's what, who would need to be, sort of who's responsible and accountable and consulted and informed at each stage. And it's you right now. But then as you start growing, you start adding additional people, you start plugging them into this. And so, start doing things early, sort of thinking about the future, and again, looking for those gaps, and where might we be able to drop the ball with the customer. Look for the very obvious places and really try to shore that up. So get clear on the processes and the roles of the people involved.
That's a great point. Following that one, something that's very close to my heart, you need to centralize your data here. So you have everything, you need to capture everything that's going on with the customer. So you have that accessible for everyone involved. That's going to create a lot of efficiency for you. It's going to take away all these gut feel and these, you have to ask him or her. So this is a key part in building a more team approach to customer success, is of course to have centralized data where you can see how things are going as much as possible, of course, real time. So that's number 2 here, and this is also a step-by-step process to start getting it, the first steps on that one, and then you can evolve with adding more data to it. But that's a key thing here as well.
For sure. Yeah, I mean that's critical to eliminating the customer having to repeat themselves at the very least, right? That's so huge. And then I think the third one I would say is orchestration, which is really just proactively and properly managing expectations with your customers, so there are no surprises, so that they know you're not, as a CSM, like you're not the only person they're ever going to work with. If they think that, it's because you didn't manage their expectations properly. So just do that. Be transparent about what it's going to look like when they start working with you, or as they advance and as they grow and evolve. So, and again, if it's just you right now, great, but let them know at some point you may bring on other people on the team and they may end up working with them. So start managing expectations today.
Perfect. So that's a wrap for today's question. We'll be back soon, and keep posting questions to us. We love that. So thanks a lot, everyone. Hey, thanks for listening. Do you want to bring your customer success to the next level? Check out Impact Academy. We have training programs for customer success managers and for leaders in customer success.